Hey guys, tonight we're traveling back in time to the land of the pharaohs, to ancient Egypt, a civilization that mastered the art of restful sleep. Picture this, you're lying on a soft mat in a cool, dimly lit chamber, the air thick with the soothing scent of frankincense and myrrh. The flickering light of a small oil lamp dances along the walls, and outside, the sound of the Nile gently flowing reaches your ears. You're about to drift off to sleep, but before you close your eyes, the incense in the room works its magic, easing your mind and preparing your soul for the night's rest. The Egyptians didn't just use incense for religious rituals, they believed it played a crucial role in creating the ideal sleep environment. You probably won't survive this level of luxury though, there's just so much peace and serenity to handle. But if you're ready to imagine yourself in ancient Egypt for a night, get comfortable and let's dive into how they used incense as the secret ingredient for perfect sleep. So, before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is. I'd love to know what part of the world is joining me tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. In ancient Egypt, the role of incense was deeply embedded in both their spiritual and daily lives. The Egyptians understood the significance of creating the perfect environment for sleep, which they believed wasn't just for physical rest but for spiritual renewal. Sleep was seen as a time for both the body and soul to recharge, and incense played a key role in preparing individuals for this peaceful and divine time of rest. The Egyptians weren't just lighting incense for pleasant scents, they believed that certain aromas had the power to influence emotions and mental states. They used frankincense, myrrh, and other fragrances to calm the mind, heal the body, and even invoke a connection to the gods. These scents weren't just part of the ambience, they were essential to spiritual hygiene and well-being. In the Egyptian worldview, sleep wasn't merely about getting some shut-eye after a long day. It was a sacred practice, and the preparation for it, starting with the scented atmosphere, was just as important as the rest itself. The Egyptians thought of sleep as an opportunity for spiritual cleansing, and burning incense in the bedroom was an essential step in preparing the soul for its journey through the night. But how did incense specifically contribute to sleep quality and even dreams? Historians still debate whether the Egyptians fully understood the scientific benefits of the scents they used, or if they simply believed in their spiritual powers. Some suggest that their use of incense was more about creating a peaceful, divine atmosphere for the body to rest, while others argue that the aromatic compounds had actual therapeutic properties that helped induce better sleep. Either way, it's clear that incense wasn't just an afterthought, it was a deliberate and intentional part of the Egyptian sleep routine, designed to ensure that the sleeper not only rested their body but also purified their soul for the night. So, as you imagine this soothing setting, think about how incense might have been woven into the very fabric of Egyptian life. It wasn't just a luxury or a simple scent, it was a tool that helped them transition from the waking world to the dream world, creating an environment of peaceful tranquility that would guide them through the night. The ancient Egyptians truly understood that the mind and body needed to be aligned for rest to be truly restorative. The use of incense was just one of the ways they created that perfect balance. As we explore further into the role of incense in ancient Egyptian sleep practices, let's take a closer look at the specific scents they favored and how these fragrances were believed to influence not only their rest but their connection to the divine. The ancient Egyptians, long before modern science, understood that scent could have a powerful impact on the body and mind. Frankincense and myrrh, the two most commonly used incense materials, were prized not only for their pleasant aromas but also for their spiritual significance. Imagine the scene, you're lying in your peaceful bedroom, the fragrant smoke rising from a small bowl of frankincense placed by your bed. The rich, warm scent begins to fill the room, its sweet yet earthy aroma floating through the air. Frankincense was used widely in religious ceremonies, burned as an offering to the gods to invoke their presence and favor. But it wasn't only reserved for rituals, it was also used in the homes of the ancient Egyptians as a tool for spiritual purification. Before bed, Egyptians burned frankincense not just to scent the air, but as a way of cleansing the mind and spirit, preparing themselves for the peaceful, rejuvenating rest that would follow. Myrrh, another sacred resin, was equally important in the Egyptian sleep ritual. It was often combined with frankincense or used on its own, depending on the intended effect. Myrrh had a slightly bitterer, more woody fragrance, which made it soothing and ideal for calming a restless mind. While frankincense was believed to open a channel to the divine, myrrh was associated more with healing and restoration. The Egyptians used myrrh to aid in physical relaxation, helping to calm the body and release tension, key elements in preparing for a peaceful night's sleep. Historians still argue whether the use of these powerful scents was purely based on their spiritual meanings or if the Egyptians unknowingly benefited from their therapeutic properties. Some modern studies suggest that frankincense contains compounds that may help to reduce anxiety, while myrrh has been shown to have anti-inflammatory effects. Whether or not the Egyptians understood the physical effects of these scents, they undoubtedly knew that burning these incense resins created an environment that was conducive to both mental and physical peace, setting the stage for restful sleep. But incense wasn't just about the scents themselves, it was about how they integrated into daily life. Incense burning was a ritual, almost meditative in its process, a practice that helped prepare the mind for sleep. This was a significant part of the Egyptian sleep routine, as it created an atmosphere of calm and focus, making it easier for individuals to disconnect from the stresses of daily life and prepare mentally for rest. The practice of burning incense before sleep mirrored their broader ritualistic approach to life. Everything was done with intention and purpose, from the food they ate to the way they slept. This ritualistic use of incense before sleep is a stark contrast to how we treat sleep in modern society, where we often rush through the process without any thought given to creating a peaceful environment. The ancient Egyptians took the time to prepare for sleep, using tools like incense to induce a state of restfulness and make sleep a more holistic experience. In a world that often encourages us to hurry to bed, perhaps there's something to be said for their intentional approach, making sleep not just an action, but a ritual designed to restore both body and spirit. Aside from frankincense and myrrh, the Egyptians also made use of other scents to enhance sleep. Lotus flower and jasmine were often used for their calming effects. These scents were believed to have properties that could promote relaxation, soothe stress, and invite a peaceful night's rest. Lotus, in particular, was closely associated with the goddess Nefertum, the goddess of healing and beauty, and was thought to have a direct link to divine tranquility. Burning the fragrance of the lotus flower in the bedroom was another way the Egyptians connected their sleep with the divine, inviting peaceful dreams and the protection of the gods. Now, consider how the scent of these ancient resins and flowers would have filled the air in the dim light of an Egyptian bedroom. The incense would burn slowly, the smoke curling up toward the ceiling as you prepare to drift into a deep sleep, your senses relaxed by the soothing aromas around you. You're not simply lying down to sleep, you're preparing yourself for a spiritual journey. The Egyptians saw sleep as more than just a necessary part of life, they viewed it as an opportunity for the body to rest and the spirit to reconnect with the divine. With incense as their guide, sleep became a sacred experience, a chance for renewal and balance. Historians still argue whether the use of incense was purely a luxury or whether it was considered essential to health in ancient Egypt. Some believe that the practice of burning incense before sleep was an exclusive activity reserved for the elite, while others argue that it was part of a widespread practice across all social classes. Either way, the fact remains that the use of incense played a significant role in helping Egyptians achieve a state of mental and spiritual clarity, ensuring that they could rest fully and peacefully. Let's continue by examining the broader cultural significance of incense in ancient Egypt. While we've already seen how incense played a key role in promoting a restful sleep, the use of incense in Egyptian society wasn't just confined to bedtime. Incense had deep spiritual and symbolic value and was interwoven with every aspect of Egyptian life, from religious ceremonies to daily routines. It was a symbol of divine connection, and it played a crucial role in maintaining the relationship between the gods and humans. In temples, incense was burned as an offering to the gods during rituals and prayers. Priests would light frankincense and myrrh during religious ceremonies, believing the smoke carried their prayers and offerings to the heavens. The connection between incense and the divine was clear, the fragrant smoke symbolized the presence of the gods, and by using it, the Egyptians hoped to align themselves with divine will. This use of incense in spiritual practice reflects how deeply the Egyptians believed that the material world and the divine world were intertwined. Burning incense during prayer wasn't just about scent, it was a ritual act that connected the spiritual and physical realms. Historians still argue whether the connection between incense and sleep was purely spiritual or whether the physical benefits of burning incense were recognized at the time. Some scholars suggest that the Egyptians used incense primarily for ritualistic purposes, seeing its scent as a symbolic offering to the gods. Others believe that the calming effects of the incense were understood, and it was used both for spiritual purposes and practical reasons, helping people relax before sleep and clear their minds. Either way, the use of incense was both a spiritual practice and a self-care ritual, intertwining the sacred with the everyday. But incense didn't just serve spiritual or practical purposes, it also had a symbolic function. The frankincense and myrrh that filled the air were seen as symbols of purity, healing, and divine favor. Burning these resins before bed wasn't simply about enjoying a pleasant fragrance, it was about invoking divine protection during sleep. The Egyptians believed that, through the power of incense, they could invite protection from evil forces that might disturb their rest. Incense created an environment where the soul could sleep undisturbed and where spiritual purification could take place. The symbolism of incense was closely tied to the Egyptian worldview, which saw everything in the universe as part of a delicate balance. Life, death, the gods, and the cosmos were all interconnected, and everything had a spiritual significance. Sleep, as a time when the soul could leave the body and travel to the divine realm, was viewed as part of this cosmic balance. Burning incense before sleep wasn't just about the physical act of rest, it was a way of aligning oneself with the natural and divine order of the universe. By using incense, Egyptians believed they were maintaining this balance, ensuring that their sleep would be both physically rejuvenating and spiritually fulfilling. At the same time, incense was also a form of personal purification. Just as the Egyptians would purify their bodies through bathing, they also used incense to cleanse their minds and spirits before rest. This ritualistic purification was seen as necessary before sleep because, in Egyptian belief, the soul could be polluted by negative thoughts, emotions, or actions from the day. The use of incense before bed was a way of resetting oneself, creating a peaceful space that allowed the soul to rest and reconnect with the divine. Interestingly, the role of incense in sleep rituals wasn't confined to Egyptian elite or priests. Though it was most prominently used in temples, there's evidence that incense was burned in homes as well. Archaeological discoveries suggest that incense burners were found in private homes, indicating that everyday Egyptians likely used incense as part of their own spiritual and sleep routines. Whether they were using it for relaxation or to invite divine protection, the use of incense was a practice that permeated all levels of Egyptian society. This widespread use of incense, both for spiritual rituals and for personal well-being, shows how intertwined the practice of sleep and spirituality were in ancient Egypt. The Egyptians understood that sleep was not simply a biological need, it was a sacred time, a time to renew the body, purify the spirit, and connect with the divine. The careful use of incense as part of the sleep ritual helped to create an environment of peace and balance, ensuring that both the body and soul could rest, heal, and prepare for the day ahead. Imagine, then, the kind of atmosphere created in a typical Egyptian bedroom: soft, flickering light from lamps, the air thick with the sweet scent of frankincense and myrrh, and the sense that you are not just resting but participating in a ritual of spiritual renewal. You aren't just falling asleep, you are aligning yourself with the rhythms of the cosmos, the divine, and your own inner peace. It's no wonder that the Egyptians believed sleep to be a sacred experience, one that required preparation, intention, and connection to the greater world. As we continue exploring the rich sleep practices of ancient Egypt, it's important to consider the medicinal properties of incense. While we often think of incense as something purely ceremonial or aromatic, the ancient Egyptians were well aware of its potential healing effects. Incense was an integral part of their medical and wellness practices, and it was used not just for relaxation but also for promoting physical health, including improving sleep quality. This shows how holistic their approach to sleep and wellness truly was. The Egyptians used incense made from frankincense and myrrh not only in religious rituals but also in the treatment of various ailments. Frankincense, for instance, was believed to have anti-inflammatory properties and was used to treat respiratory issues, such as coughs and shortness of breath. These conditions, if left untreated, could disrupt sleep, and so incense became a tool to aid in breathing and create a more comfortable environment for rest. The soothing aroma of frankincense was believed to ease breathing difficulties, allowing people to relax and enter sleep without physical discomfort. Myrrh, another common incense resin in Egypt, was often used for wound healing and to reduce swelling. This resin was also believed to have calming properties, which helped reduce stress and anxiety, common factors that disrupt sleep even today. Myrrh's soothing effects would have likely been beneficial for people who struggled to relax, especially after a long, stressful day. The Egyptians understood that sleep wasn't just about lying down, it was about creating the right physical and mental conditions to allow the body to fully recover and rejuvenate. The use of medicinal incense was one of the ways they ensured these conditions were met. Historians still argue whether the Egyptians consciously understood the scientific benefits of burning frankincense and myrrh, or whether their use of these substances was based entirely on spiritual beliefs. Some scholars suggest that the Egyptians simply trusted these materials because they had been used for centuries and were known to have positive effects, whether medicinal or spiritual. Others believe that they may have recognized the physical properties of these resins and applied them directly to their wellness routines. Whatever the case, it's clear that incense was not only used for its spiritual and mental benefits but also for its healing potential. In addition to incense, the Egyptians also had other practices designed to improve sleep quality. For example, sleeping arrangements in ancient Egypt were often designed for comfort and to promote healthy sleep. Beds were typically made from wood or stone and were often elevated off the ground to allow for better ventilation and to avoid the discomfort of sleeping directly on the floor. This was especially important in the hot desert climate, where sleeping in a cooler environment was essential for getting a good night's rest. The use of mattresses stuffed with soft materials like goat hair and palm fronds provided added comfort, ensuring that rest was both physically and spiritually beneficial. Historians still debate how widespread these luxurious sleep arrangements were. Some argue that only the elite, such as priests or royalty, had access to such elevated beds and comfortable sleeping arrangements, while others believe that these practices were more common across Egyptian society. What is certain, however, is that the Egyptians understood the importance of quality sleep and took great care to ensure that their sleeping environments were designed to promote relaxation, comfort, and health. In addition to the physical comforts of sleep, the Egyptians also understood the importance of a restful environment for the mind. This is where the use of incense comes into play. The calming aromas help to set the tone for a peaceful night of rest. Just as we use essential oils or relaxation music today to create a serene sleep environment, the Egyptians used incense as their tool for mental relaxation. The gentle fragrance would have helped clear the mind of stress and worries, making it easier for individuals to drift into sleep without mental distractions. The connection between mindfulness and sleep was an essential aspect of Egyptian culture. Before sleep, many Egyptians would engage in quiet reflection, offering prayers or simply meditating to clear their minds. This practice helped to reduce mental clutter and promote a sense of spiritual peace, preparing the body and soul for restful sleep. By creating a peaceful environment, both physically and mentally, the Egyptians were able to ensure that sleep wasn't just about recovering energy, it was about restoring balance and purity to the whole person. In this sense, incense played a dual role. It wasn't just a tool for physical relaxation, but a spiritual instrument that helped Egyptians connect with the divine before rest. This connection to the divine was a vital part of the Egyptian belief that sleep was a time for spiritual renewal. Much like we might practice meditation or mindfulness today to prepare for rest, the ancient Egyptians understood the importance of preparing not just the body, but also the spirit, for the night ahead. Imagine the gentle smoke of frankincense filling the air as you prepare for sleep. You lie down on your comfortable bed, the soft scent of myrrh helping to calm your mind. You take a moment for reflection or prayer, letting go of the worries of the day. The peaceful atmosphere, combined with the therapeutic benefits of the incense, helps you drift into a deep, restorative sleep. This was the gift the Egyptians gave to themselves every night, a moment of peace, balance, and spiritual renewal. Let's now take a deeper look at how the incense rituals used by the ancient Egyptians were tied to their broader beliefs about health and well-being. While we've explored the spiritual significance of incense, it's essential to recognize that incense wasn't just a luxury, it was an integral part of the Egyptian approach to health. The Egyptians saw physical health and spiritual health as deeply intertwined, and their use of incense for sleep reflects this holistic view. One of the primary reasons incense was used by the Egyptians was to promote peace of mind, which, in turn, was thought to improve physical rest. They believed that the body and mind needed to be in balance for proper sleep, and that mental tranquility was just as important as physical comfort when it came to getting a good night's rest. Incense was seen as a tool to create a calming atmosphere, allowing the mind to relax and the body to follow suit. This wasn't just about creating a pleasant environment, it was about preparing the body for restful, rejuvenating sleep. The Persians weren't the only ones who linked incense to health, though the Egyptians' understanding of sleep as part of a holistic wellness routine set them apart from many other ancient cultures. While the Egyptians didn't have the modern sleep science that we do today, they instinctively understood that rest could only occur when both body and spirit were at peace. The act of burning incense before sleep wasn't merely about the pleasant aroma, it was about invoking divine protection, creating a spiritual barrier against negative influences, and ensuring the body would remain at ease throughout the night. Interestingly, the aromatic properties of frankincense and myrrh were likely recognized by the Egyptians for their health benefits. Frankincense, for example, has been shown to have anti-inflammatory and anxiolytic, anxiety-reducing, effects. In modern times, we use frankincense and myrrh in essential oils and aromatherapy, practices that tap into the same ancient principles of using scent to induce relaxation and restore mental calm. The Egyptians were, in a sense, ahead of their time, recognizing the healing properties of these materials long before modern science validated their effects. Historians still argue whether the Egyptians fully understood the therapeutic properties of these scents or if their use was purely ritualistic and symbolic. Some believe that the Egyptians recognized the power of these fragrances to ease mental stress and create a restful environment, while others argue that incense burning was primarily a religious act, one aimed at connecting with the gods and inviting divine protection during sleep. Either way, it's clear that incense played a significant role in creating an environment conducive to peaceful rest, aligning both body and soul for the restorative experience of sleep. Beyond the physical and spiritual benefits, incense also symbolized purification. In Zoroastrianism, and many other ancient religions, purification rituals were essential to achieving divine favor and spiritual balance. The Egyptians saw sleep as a time of renewal, both physically, as the body repaired itself during rest, and spiritually, as the soul connected with the divine forces during the night. The burning of incense before sleep was part of this purification process. It wasn't just about making the room smell good, it was about cleansing the space and preparing the individual for a restful sleep that would be undisturbed by negative energy, both physical and spiritual. The Egyptians took great care in their rituals, whether they were preparing for sleep or for a religious ceremony. Rituals helped them structure their day, allowing them to maintain their health, spirituality, and sense of well-being. Sleep, as a sacred ritual, was no different. The preparation for sleep wasn't rushed or haphazard, it was carefully planned to ensure the individual was fully prepared to enter the realm of rest in both body and spirit. Imagine this process, the evening winding down after a long day, and you prepare your body for sleep with the ritual of prayer, incense, and calming reflection. The act of burning frankincense or myrrh isn't just about sleep, but about honoring the divine and ensuring your sleep is a sacred experience. As the incense fills the air, your mind slowly releases its tension, and your body follows suit, sinking deeper into relaxation. The Egyptians didn't just rest, they ensured that sleep was a time of spiritual healing, with incense guiding them through the night. Today, we may no longer rely on the ancient practice of burning incense to prepare for sleep, but we can still take inspiration from their practice. How much of modern sleep hygiene is focused on creating an environment that promotes relaxation and mental peace before bed? Whether through dim lighting, soothing sounds, or even a calming scent, we've adapted similar principles to create our own peaceful sleep rituals. The Egyptian use of incense for sleep shows us how scent, environment, and ritual can come together to create a restorative space for both the mind and body. The Egyptians understood that quality sleep was about more than just physical rest, it was about balance, connection, and purification. As we prepare to sleep tonight, consider how you might incorporate some of their ancient wisdom. Perhaps the gentle flicker of a candle, a calming scent, or a few moments of stillness can help you transition from the stresses of the day into the peacefulness of the night, just as the Egyptians did so long ago. As we continue to explore the ancient Egyptian use of incense for a peaceful sleep, let's take a moment to focus on the rituals that were connected not just to rest, but to the spiritual journey of sleep itself. In Egypt, sleep was viewed as an essential time for spiritual renewal, a moment for the soul to be cleansed and protected as it traveled into the divine realm of dreams. Much like today's spiritual practices, sleep was seen as an opportunity for inner reflection and a time to connect with the divine. For the Egyptians, incense was an important component of this ritual, creating an atmosphere that helped prepare both the body and spirit for this sacred journey. In Zoroastrianism and ancient Egyptian religion, the soul was believed to leave the body during sleep, embarking on a journey to the realm of the gods. This journey was believed to be important for spiritual purification, and the incense used before sleep was meant to help ensure that the soul would be protected from evil spirits or negative forces during its journey. The burning of frankincense, myrrh, and other aromatic substances was intended to cleanse the air, creating a pure space for the soul's safe journey through the night. In many ways, the sleep rituals in ancient Egypt weren't just about physical comfort, they were about spiritual alignment and ensuring that both the body and soul were prepared for the rest that would come. Historians still debate the exact nature of how the Egyptians viewed the spiritual aspect of sleep. Was it universally practiced by all Egyptians, or was it more common among the elite or religious classes? Some scholars suggest that it was primarily the priests and royalty who participated in the more elaborate sleep rituals, using incense and other sacred practices to purify themselves and align with the divine. Others argue that these practices were likely common across the population, as the belief in the soul's journey during sleep was central to Egyptian spirituality. Whatever the case, it's clear that sleep, in the Egyptian worldview, was a sacred act, one that required purification and preparation, both physically and spiritually. This belief in the soul's journey and the use of incense before sleep also speaks to the Egyptians' profound respect for the unseen world. They didn't just use incense to create a pleasant atmosphere, they used it to invite divine presence and to protect themselves during the vulnerable state of sleep. The idea that sleep was not just physical rest, but also a spiritual experience, helped shape the way Egyptians approached their entire wellness routine. They understood that rest was not simply about recuperation, it was about connecting to something higher and ensuring spiritual balance was maintained. The concept of using incense as a spiritual safeguard also has parallels to modern practices where we use soothing rituals before bed to quiet our minds and prepare ourselves for the night. Whether through meditation, prayer, or even the use of aromatherapy, we still recognize the importance of mental clarity and emotional balance before sleep. While we may not believe in the journey of the soul in the same way as the ancient Egyptians, we can appreciate the wisdom in their approach, how rituals of peace and purification before rest can help us achieve a more profound sense of relaxation and renewal. As we think about the role of incense in these rituals, it's worth noting that the Egyptians didn't just burn incense for peaceful sleep, they burned it as part of a larger commitment to spiritual growth. The Egyptians used incense as a tool for divine communication, as well as for healing. They understood that incense wasn't just about sleep, it was a way to maintain a deeper connection to divinity and purity. Burning incense was part of an ongoing process of cleansing the spirit, and it was believed that by using incense regularly, they could maintain a healthy spiritual environment that would support not just rest, but their overall well-being. Imagine now, as you prepare for sleep tonight, how the simple act of lighting a small incense burner could help set the stage for your own journey into rest. The soft glow of the flame and the gentle scent of your chosen incense fill the air, creating a peaceful atmosphere that not only calms the mind but also signals a time for spiritual peace. Much like the ancient Egyptians, We can use this act to prepare not only our bodies but our minds and souls for the renewal that comes with rest. Incense can be a simple tool that invites mental clarity, enhances the quality of our sleep, and even fosters a deeper connection to our inner selves. The practice of incorporating incense into our nightly routine can be a way to embrace a mindful, intentional approach to sleep. It's a gentle reminder that sleep isn't just an interruption in our busy lives but a sacred time, a time to reset both physically and spiritually. By following in the footsteps of the Egyptians and adopting their intentional approach to sleep, we can turn the act of resting into a ritual of balance and renewal, one that restores not only our bodies but our spirits as well. So, tonight, as you prepare for rest, think about how you can create a peaceful, spiritual environment that prepares you for a night of deep sleep. Maybe it's lighting a candle or incense, maybe it's a moment of prayer or gratitude, or maybe it's just being intentional about the peaceful space you've created. Whatever it is, remember that the act of sleep is sacred, and as the ancient Egyptians knew, the way we prepare for it can make all the difference in how we wake up. As we continue to explore how the ancient Egyptians intertwined incense with their sleep rituals, it's important to delve into the broader impact of these practices on Egyptian health and daily life. While sleep in Egypt was seen as a spiritual necessity, it was also deeply connected to their approach to wellness. Ancient Egyptians understood that mental clarity and emotional peace were integral to maintaining a healthy body. Their sleep rituals, particularly the use of incense, were a means to promote holistic health, one that extended beyond just physical care to embrace spiritual and psychological balance as well. The incense used before sleep was more than just a relaxing fragrance, it was seen as a spiritual purifier. Egyptians believed that the act of burning frankincense and myrrh before sleep helped cleanse both the physical space and the mind. The purification of the self was an important element of their sleep ritual, and it was believed that this purification allowed the soul to rest more deeply, unburdened by negative influences. In a way, sleep was seen as a continuation of their daily rituals of purity, whether through bathing, prayer, or the act of setting a peaceful environment in preparation for rest. It's clear that the Egyptians didn't just sleep, they engaged in a ritual that was both restorative and spiritually renewing. In ancient Egypt, health wasn't just about the body, it was about the balance between the physical, mental, and spiritual realms. The Egyptians recognized that the quality of sleep influenced their overall vitality, and they took care to ensure that the sleep environment was designed to support full rejuvenation. Their use of incense and other calming practices was an expression of their belief that true health could only be achieved through balance in all aspects of life. This holistic view of wellness is something we still value today, as modern sleep science recognizes the link between mental peace, emotional balance, and physical health. Historians still argue whether the use of incense was reserved for the wealthy elite or if it was a practice accessible to all Egyptians, regardless of class. Some suggest that incense burning was likely a luxury reserved for the elite, as it would have been expensive and hard to come by. Others argue that because incense was used for religious purposes and in public spaces like temples, it may have been a practice available to everyone, especially in larger cities. Regardless of its accessibility, what's clear is that the ritual use of incense in daily life played a significant role in promoting not just physical health, but spiritual and emotional well-being. As we think about the modern-day parallels, we can see how the Egyptians' holistic approach to sleep aligns with contemporary practices. In today's world, many people use aromatherapy as a tool to help manage stress, improve sleep quality, and maintain emotional balance. The connection between scent and sleep is well documented. Lavender, for example, is known for its calming and sleep-inducing properties. Modern wellness practices, such as mindfulness, meditation, and yoga, also emphasize the importance of mental and emotional purification before bed to ensure restful sleep. In a way, the ancient Egyptians were early practitioners of these ideas, blending spiritual and physical health practices to create a peaceful environment for rest. Take a moment now to imagine your own evening routine. Perhaps you light some incense or use an essential oil diffuser, creating an environment that helps you unwind from the stresses of the day. Just as the Egyptians understood, this act of creating a peaceful space for sleep is not just about comfort, it's about preparing your body, mind, and soul for a deep, restful night. Much like their use of incense, we can use modern tools to support our sleep routines, whether through calming scents, ambient lighting, or even a few minutes of quiet reflection before bed. Sleep, for the ancient Egyptians, was far more than just a biological process. It was a ritual that engaged both the body and the spirit. The practice of burning incense to promote a restful sleep was not simply about creating a calming atmosphere, it was about aligning oneself with the divine, ensuring that the soul would be protected and purified during its time of rest. Their belief that sleep was a spiritual experience underscores the idea that rest isn't just for physical recovery, but also for spiritual renewal. As we move through our busy lives, we can take a cue from the Egyptians and embrace the idea that sleep is not just a moment of physical rest, it's an opportunity for balance, healing, and spiritual renewal. In a world where we are constantly bombarded by screens, distractions, and stress, we can draw from the wisdom of the Egyptians. Their approach to sleep teaches us to slow down, purify, and restore not only our bodies, but also our minds and souls. Whether it's through the use of incense, relaxation techniques, or creating a peaceful space, we can incorporate elements of the ancient Egyptian practice into our own routines. In doing so, we might discover the power of intentional rest, a rest that heals and recharges every aspect of our being. As we move further into the intricacies of ancient Egyptian sleep rituals, it's fascinating to explore the broader cultural context of rest in Egyptian society. The role of sleep in their daily lives was not just confined to individual wellness, it was a reflection of their worldview. Ancient Egyptians placed immense value on the concept of balance and harmony, both within their personal lives and in their interactions with the divine. Sleep was seen as an integral part of this balance, a time to reconnect with the spiritual world and maintain harmony between body, mind, and soul. One of the most interesting aspects of ancient Egyptian sleep traditions was the way sleep itself was connected to their cosmology and the cycle of life and death. The Egyptians believed in the concept of ma'at, the divine principle of order, balance, and harmony. This concept extended beyond just physical health, it was about ensuring that everything in the universe, including an individual's life and soul, remained in balance. Sleep, then, wasn't just about physical rest, it was seen as a time for the body to recharge and the soul to align with divine order. The act of sleeping peacefully was a way to ensure that an individual's life was aligned with ma'at, and it was considered a necessary component of maintaining balance in both the material and spiritual realms. For the Egyptians, sleep and dreams were believed to be interconnected with the god's will. Many Egyptians believed that their dreams were messages from the divine, offering insights into the future or revealing guidance for personal decisions. This belief in the sacredness of sleep was further reinforced by the fact that temples and other sacred spaces often had dreaming chambers, where individuals could go to sleep in a spiritually purified environment and seek guidance from the gods through their dreams. The Egyptians understood that dreams could offer not just personal insight, but could also provide messages about cosmic order and divine will. Historians still debate how widely these practices were followed, especially among the general population versus the elite. Some suggest that elite Egyptians, especially priests and royal figures, had more direct access to these sacred spaces and rituals. Others argue that the spiritual significance of sleep and dreams permeated all levels of Egyptian society, with the common people incorporating these practices into their own homes and daily lives. What we do know is that incense played an important role in these rituals. It wasn't just about creating a calm atmosphere, it was about invoking divine presence and ensuring that sleep was aligned with the spiritual and cosmic order. While many of these practices have been lost to time, we can still see the influence of Egyptian sleep rituals in how we approach rest and spiritual well-being today. Modern practices such as dream journaling and aromatherapy for relaxation are modern-day counterparts to the Egyptian belief that sleep could be a spiritual experience, one that brought both healing and divine connection. The Egyptians knew that sleep was not just about physical comfort, it was about maintaining a spiritual balance and ensuring that the soul was aligned with the divine forces of the universe. Consider how, today, we still create rituals around sleep, whether it's lighting candles, using calming scents, or taking moments of quiet reflection before bed. While we might not be calling on the gods for divine protection or guidance, the act of creating a peaceful, intentional environment for sleep is something that echoes the ancient Egyptian approach. Just as the Egyptians used incense to create a sacred space for rest, we can use our modern tools, whether that's a relaxing essential oil diffuser or a quiet moment of meditation, to prepare ourselves for rest in a way that nurtures our body, mind, and spirit. As we reflect on how the Egyptians used incense in their sleep rituals, we realize that it wasn't just about physical rest. It was about connecting to something greater, something beyond the physical realm. Incense, with its spiritual and physical benefits, was a tool to create an environment where sleep became a time for spiritual healing and renewal. In today's world, where the pressures of modern life can often make it difficult to unwind before bed, the ancient Egyptian practices remind us that rest is not just about shutting our eyes, it's about aligning ourselves with a sense of peace and balance. We might not have access to the same aromatic resins or sacred rituals that the ancient Egyptians practiced, but the principles of their sleep traditions still resonate with us. In a world filled with distractions and stress, it's more important than ever to embrace the idea that sleep is sacred. Whether through the use of calming scents, meditation, or simply creating a peaceful environment, we can tap into the same principles that the Egyptians understood thousands of years ago, that rest and relaxation are necessary not just for our bodies, but for our souls. So, tonight, as you prepare for sleep, consider the ancient Egyptian wisdom that sleep is not just an end to your day, it's a time for restoration, spiritual alignment, and healing. Take a few minutes to clear your mind, light a candle, and allow the peaceful atmosphere of your space to invite rest. Like the ancient Egyptians, see sleep as a sacred time to renew not just your body, but your spirit as well. As we continue to delve deeper into the sleep practices of ancient Egypt, let's examine the social and spiritual aspects of sleep in the context of Egyptian life. Beyond the rituals, incense, and the focus on physical rest, sleep had a profound cultural significance. The Egyptians' worldview, shaped by Zoroastrianism and other influences, viewed the connection between the individual and the divine as a central part of daily life. Sleep was a time for divine protection, spiritual renewal, and even cosmic alignment. The connection between health, sleep, and spirituality was more deeply ingrained than we may realize today. In ancient Egypt, community was essential to the well-being of individuals, and sleep was no exception. While we tend to think of sleep as a solitary activity, the Egyptians took a communal approach to rest. Many of the more spiritual practices, including the burning of incense, weren't just for individual benefit, they were about inviting the whole family or even the community into a sacred space before rest. The act of sleeping together in this spiritually prepared environment helped to ensure the collective well-being of the household. This communal approach to sleep was especially prevalent in larger family units and temples, where group rituals helped foster a sense of unity. Historians still debate the extent to which this communal practice was universally applied to all Egyptians, regardless of social class. Was this peaceful ritualistic sleep reserved for the elite or priests, or did it permeate society at large? Evidence suggests that while elite Egyptians, particularly royalty, had access to the finest sleeping arrangements and spiritual guidance, there was likely an underlying cultural tradition of creating peaceful, spiritually aligned sleep spaces for the general population. Public temples and community spaces often provided opportunities for both physical and spiritual rest, suggesting that sleep wasn't just a private affair, it was a communal practice. Beyond the physical comfort, the Egyptian approach to sleep had deep spiritual significance. Sleep was seen as a time when the body rested, but the soul, the ka, traveled. As the Egyptians believed, the soul's journey during sleep was just as important as the awakened state. Much like how the soul could interact with the divine through rituals and ceremonies, sleep was a sacred act that allowed for spiritual cleansing and connection. The incense used during sleep rituals helped to maintain this spiritual purity, preventing the soul from being disturbed by negative energies or spirits during its journey through the night. The burning of frankincense and myrrh was integral to the belief that sleep should be a time of spiritual alignment and protection. These incense materials were thought to purify the air and create a sanctified space in which the soul could travel freely. This practice reflects a profound understanding of the connection between the physical world, the spiritual realm, and the afterlife. The Egyptians believed that the soul needed to be at peace before sleep in order to maintain cosmic order. Therefore, sleep wasn't just about rest, it was about maintaining harmony with the forces of divinity and cosmic balance. In terms of their broader cultural approach, the Egyptians believed in the importance of symbols in everyday life, and this extended to their sleeping habits. The sleep environment, for example, was filled with symbolic elements. From the specific direction a bed was placed to the design of the bedding, each aspect had a spiritual significance. The ancient Egyptians were keenly aware that sleep was more than just physical rest, it was a moment for the soul to be rejuvenated and protected, preparing it for the challenges of the next day. The quality of sleep was also tied to the rituals of the day. In ancient Egypt, individuals would prepare mentally for sleep throughout the day, engaging in prayers or ceremonies that aligned them with divine principles. This was especially true for royalty and priests, who believed that sleep was an important part of the cosmic order. When preparing for bed, they would often ensure that the bedroom space was cleansed of any spiritual pollutants. Rituals around cleansing and aligning the self for sleep ensured that the individual could rest in a state of purity and harmony. Sleep became a time for the soul to renew itself, to rest, and to be reconnected with the divine. Even in today's world, we see echoes of these ancient beliefs. The rituals we perform before bed, whether it's meditation, aromatherapy, or lighting candles, are modern-day reflections of ancient practices that sought to bring peace, balance, and spiritual alignment before rest. The idea of creating a peaceful sleep environment, both physically and mentally, is not just a matter of comfort, it's about entering a sacred space that allows us to rejuvenate and reconnect with ourselves. So, as you prepare for bed tonight, imagine taking a moment to reflect on the day's events and spiritually align yourself before sleep, much like the ancient Egyptians did. Light a calming incense or simply take a few minutes for quiet reflection to set your mind at ease. Let this practice be a reminder that sleep is sacred, an opportunity to restore both the body and the soul, allowing you to wake up renewed and balanced for the day ahead. As we continue to explore the intricate sleep rituals of the ancient Egyptians, it's important to look at the legacy of their practices and how they have influenced modern approaches to wellness and restful sleep. While we may no longer burn frankincense and myrrh before bed, the fundamental ideas of creating a peaceful sleep environment and incorporating ritual into our bedtime routine can still be seen in our modern practices. The Egyptians were masters of blending spirituality with health, and their practices offer timeless wisdom on how to approach sleep as not just a physical necessity but as an opportunity for spiritual renewal. In today's world, we often focus on sleep hygiene, making sure our sleep environment is clean, dark, and comfortable. But the Egyptians took this even further, seeing sleep not only as a time for physical rest but as an opportunity to connect with the divine and restore cosmic balance. This was reflected in their use of incense, which not only provided a calming aroma but also served as a tool for spiritual purification. Today, while we may not view incense in the same sacred light, the practice of setting an atmosphere of peace, whether through the use of calming scents, soft lighting, or relaxing sounds, mirrors the ancient Egyptian approach. The Egyptians also understood that mental preparation for sleep was just as important as physical comfort. In their world, a mindful approach to sleep was integral to the process of restoration. They recognized that stress, anxiety, or unsettled thoughts could disrupt sleep, so they created rituals to calm the mind and prepare the soul. Whether through prayers, reflection, or the use of incense to create a peaceful environment, Egyptians ensured that sleep wasn't just a time of unconsciousness, it was a sacred ritual of renewal. In today's fast-paced world, we can benefit from incorporating similar practices into our own lives. A growing number of people today are exploring practices that focus on mental well-being as part of their bedtime routines. Mindfulness, meditation, and breathing exercises are increasingly popular ways to promote relaxation and improve sleep. The ancient Egyptians understood this well. By clearing the mind and creating an environment conducive to rest, they ensured that their sleep was not just physical, but spiritually fulfilling. This combination of mental relaxation and spiritual purification is something we can still adopt today. A few minutes of quiet reflection, a warm bath infused with essential oils, or even lighting a candle can be just as effective in preparing us for a restorative night of sleep. Interestingly, the ritual use of incense in ancient Egypt wasn't just about creating a calming atmosphere for rest, it was also linked to the idea of protection. The Egyptians believed that burning incense before sleep helped to ward off evil spirits or negative energies that could disturb their rest. This belief ties into their larger understanding of the cosmic forces, the battle between the forces of good, represented by the gods, and evil, embodied by dark spirits or forces of chaos. In this context, sleep became not just a time of physical rest, but a sacred protection of the soul, where the body could recover, and the spirit could find peace and protection during its journey through the night. Modern wellness practices still focus on the idea of sleep as protection. While we may not believe in evil spirits disturbing our sleep, many people see their sleep environment as a protective cocoon, a place where they can unwind, recharge, and protect themselves from the stresses of the world. Using calming scents, meditative practices, or simply ensuring the bedroom is a serene space free from distractions all reflect this desire for a restful, undisturbed sleep. In a way, we are still following in the footsteps of the ancient Egyptians by prioritizing the creation of a peaceful environment where we can rest, restore, and reconnect with our inner selves. Looking at the legacy of the Egyptian sleep rituals also gives us a sense of how deeply ingrained their spiritual connection to sleep was. Sleep wasn't merely about rest, it was about achieving balance and harmony with the universe. The Egyptians believed that during sleep, the soul could either purify itself or be disturbed by negative forces. To protect the sanctity of this rest, they created an environment that nurtured both the body and the spirit. This perspective on sleep as a sacred process of renewal contrasts with how sleep is often viewed in modern times. Today, we tend to approach sleep more practically, focusing on how much rest we get and how we can improve sleep quality through various tools. But the Egyptians' view reminds us that sleep is not just for physical restoration, it's an opportunity for spiritual connection and peace. So, as you prepare for bed tonight, think about how you can incorporate a little piece of ancient Egyptian wisdom into your sleep routine. Maybe light a candle or incense to set a peaceful mood, practice a few minutes of meditation or reflection, and create a sacred sleep environment that promotes not just rest, but inner peace and balance. Much like the Egyptians, we can view sleep not just as an essential part of life, but as a time for rejuvenation, a time to reconnect with ourselves and the world around us. As we continue exploring the profound sleep traditions of ancient Egypt, it's important to recognize that these rituals weren't just about personal well-being, they were also an expression of Egyptian cosmology and the belief in the interconnectedness of all things. In the Egyptian worldview, everything was part of a greater cosmic order, from the stars in the sky to the people on earth, and even the act of sleeping. Sleep was not merely a biological function, it was a spiritual journey, one that allowed individuals to align themselves with the forces of the universe. This belief in the cosmic importance of sleep was reflected in the Egyptians' use of incense. Incense, with its ability to cleanse the air and create a peaceful atmosphere, was a tool to help the sleeper align themselves with the divine forces. Frankincense and myrrh, the two primary incense resins used in Egypt, were not only chosen for their calming and soothing properties, but also for their spiritual symbolism. These substances were sacred, representing purity, healing, and the divine connection between the physical and spiritual realms. Incense wasn't just a ritualistic luxury, it was a tool for connecting with Ahura Mazda, the god of light, or Ra, the sun god, whose presence was believed to guide and protect during sleep. The Egyptians believed that, during the night, their souls could traverse the spiritual world, and the burning of incense ensured that they stayed in the divine light, shielded from the chaos and darkness of the underworld. By burning these sacred resins, they invited divine protection during the vulnerable hours of sleep, keeping their souls connected to higher realms while resting. Historians still debate how widely these practices were adopted. Some suggest that incense was used primarily in religious contexts, such as during sacred rituals or in temples, while others argue that its use was more commonplace, especially for those of higher social rank. It's believed that the elite, including priests, royalty, and wealthy families, had more access to high-quality incense and could afford to use it regularly in their sleep practices. Regardless, the symbolic connection between sleep, incense, and the divine was deeply ingrained in Egyptian culture and influenced their view of rest as a spiritual practice. For the Egyptians, sleep wasn't just about recovery, it was about alignment with the cosmos. They believed that every night was an opportunity for the soul to reconnect with the divine and to seek renewal. Just as the body needed physical restoration, the soul needed spiritual purification. The burning of incense before sleep created an environment that allowed both body and spirit to rest in harmony with the universe. In this way, sleep wasn't a solitary or passive activity, it was an active spiritual practice, a time for purification and spiritual rejuvenation. Modern sleep rituals often lack this deep connection to the spiritual world. While we may use aromatherapy or soothing scents to improve our sleep, it's rare to think of sleep as a sacred practice. However, the Egyptians understood that sleep was a time when the physical and spiritual worlds intersected, and it was during this time that the body and soul could be recharged. The sleep environment wasn't just about comfort, it was about creating a space where the soul could rest in peaceful alignment with the universe. In today's world, where we are increasingly disconnected from the natural rhythms of life, we can take a moment to reflect on how sleep could be seen as a time of reconnection. Imagine, as you prepare for bed tonight, that sleep isn't just about escaping the busyness of the day, it's a chance for you to recharge spiritually, just as the Egyptians did. Creating a peaceful environment, using calming scents or lighting, and taking a few minutes for quiet reflection can help prepare the body and spirit for a restorative night of sleep. It's easy to rush through our bedtime routines, focused on getting as much sleep as possible, but the Egyptians remind us that sleep can be a ritual, a sacred act of restoration. As you settle into bed, think about the intention you can set for your own rest. Could you incorporate an element of spirituality into your sleep practice? Whether through prayer, meditation, or simply creating a peaceful environment, sleep can become an opportunity for mental peace and spiritual renewal. Like the Egyptians, we too can transform sleep from a simple biological necessity into a sacred ritual, one that restores not just our bodies, but also our spirits. Just as incense was used to purify the environment and create peace, consider how you can set the stage for a restful night that aligns your body, mind, and soul for the day ahead. As we delve deeper into the legacy of Egyptian sleep practices, it becomes apparent that the use of incense and the approach to rest had a lasting impact on both ancient and modern cultures. The Egyptians understood that sleep was not simply a means of physical rejuvenation, but a powerful moment of spiritual purification, and their practices reflected this. They believed that by carefully creating an environment of peace and divine connection, sleep became more than just a break from the day's demands, it became an opportunity to restore and reconnect with something greater. Today, we often think of incense in the context of relaxation, often using it as a tool for calming the mind or enhancing ambience. But in ancient Egypt, the act of burning frankincense and myrrh before sleep was not just about creating a pleasant atmosphere, it was an act of inviting divine protection and maintaining spiritual harmony. The Egyptians saw sleep as a time when their souls could rest, rejuvenate, and even receive divine messages. The incense was believed to purify the air, creating a sacred environment that allowed the soul to rest undisturbed, free from the chaos of the world. This connection between sleep, spirituality, and incense underscores how the Egyptians understood rest as a holistic practice, one that involved not just physical relaxation, but also spiritual alignment. Interestingly, the Egyptians were not the only ones to recognize the spiritual power of sleep. Ancient Greek and Roman cultures also viewed sleep as a time when the soul could connect with the divine. In fact, the word incubation was used by the Greeks to describe the practice of sleeping in sacred places, such as temples, in order to receive dreams or visions from the gods. This idea of sleep as a sacred journey carried over from Egypt to other ancient cultures, forming a shared understanding that sleep was more than a simple biological process, it was a spiritual experience that connected people to the divine world. Today, we see a similar desire for connection in modern sleep practices. People turn to aromatherapy, sound therapy, and other forms of rest rituals to enhance their sleep quality. The ancient Egyptian focus on creating a restorative space remains just as relevant today. Modern wellness practices often emphasize the importance of creating a peaceful environment, reducing stress, and ensuring the room is set up for optimal relaxation. This focus on environmental wellness, whether through soothing scents, gentle lighting, or calming sounds, echoes the practices of the ancient Egyptians, who believed in the importance of setting the tone for sleep before even lying down. However, the Egyptian practices of using incense went beyond simply creating a calm atmosphere. They were rooted in a spiritual worldview that emphasized the connection between sleep and the divine. The use of incense, especially in sacred spaces, was a way to invite divine energy into the room, ensuring that sleep would not only be physically restful but also spiritually restorative. While we may not see sleep as a time for direct spiritual connection in the same way the Egyptians did, we can still draw parallels between their holistic approach and modern mindfulness practices. Many people today engage in meditative practices or spiritual rituals before sleep to calm their minds and prepare for restful, healing sleep. Even though incense is no longer an everyday ritual for most, its legacy in sleep practices still holds a place in modern wellness. The use of calming scents, like lavender or frankincense, is now popular as part of a larger approach to managing stress, improving sleep quality, and even promoting emotional balance. In essence, we are continuing the ancient Egyptian practice of setting a peaceful atmosphere before sleep, helping us clear our minds and reconnect with ourselves after the day's demands. Whether through candles, essential oils, or calming music, we can still see the echoes of ancient rituals in how we prepare for rest. By looking back at ancient Egyptian sleep practices, we can better understand the connection between sleep and spiritual well-being. The Egyptians didn't view sleep merely as a physical need, but as a sacred ritual, a time to rest, heal, and align the body and soul. This view of sleep as a restorative and spiritual experience can inspire us to think more deeply about how we prepare for rest. It's not just about creating comfort, it's about creating an environment that nurtures the mind, body, and spirit. As you prepare for sleep tonight, think about how you can create your own sleep sanctuary, whether through incense, aromatherapy, prayer, or simply a moment of reflection. Just like the Egyptians, we can transform our sleep ritual into something that nourishes us spiritually, mentally, and physically. Sleep is more than just an act of lying down and resting, it's an opportunity for reconnection, renewal, and spiritual alignment. The ancient Egyptians understood that when you approach sleep with intention and care, you invite not only physical rest, but a deeper sense of peace and divine protection. And as you settle into bed tonight, remember that sleep is a sacred practice, a time to restore your balance, to purify your soul, and to reconnect with your inner peace. As we move forward in our exploration of the ancient Egyptian traditions surrounding sleep, it's fascinating to see how the Egyptians' holistic approach to wellness extended beyond just sleep itself and into the daily rituals that prepared them for rest. Sleep wasn't just about the night, it was something that was connected to the rhythms of the day, something to be cultivated throughout the hours before bedtime. From the first light of dawn until the moment they settled into bed, the Egyptians structured their day with rituals that supported the quality of their sleep. The Egyptians believed that daily balance was essential for a restful night's sleep. Much like modern wellness practices, where a balanced lifestyle helps optimize sleep, the Egyptians understood that sleep didn't just begin when you lay down at night, it started with the energy you cultivated throughout the day. This concept was deeply tied to the Egyptian belief in the importance of order and harmony in all aspects of life. For them, the goal was to ensure that the body, mind, and soul were aligned and balanced as they transitioned from the hustle and bustle of the day to the restful night. Much like how we might wind down with a cup of tea or a good book before bed, the Egyptians had their own ways of preparing the mind and body for a peaceful rest. Their day often began with prayers to the gods, acknowledging their divine presence and seeking their blessings. In fact, the Egyptians saw the first moments of the day as a time to center themselves spiritually, setting the tone for the rest of the day. Similarly, they took time in the evening to reflect and thank the gods for the day's experiences, preparing themselves mentally and spiritually for a restful night of sleep. This emphasis on spiritual preparation was seen as crucial to ensuring that sleep would be both physically restorative and spiritually renewing. Beyond these early rituals, Egyptians would also engage in physical activity during the day. The practice of exercise was important for maintaining overall health and ensuring a good night's rest. Egyptians believed that physical exertion helped the body relax, creating the ideal conditions for sleep. Whether through dancing, wrestling, or even engaging in light walking, the act of physical movement was seen as a key component of the daily routine, ensuring that the body would be physically tired enough to enjoy restful sleep at night. This practice mirrors modern-day ideas of exercise for better sleep, reinforcing the timeless idea that physical activity can help promote deeper and more restorative rest. The Egyptians also understood that mental relaxation was essential for sleep, so they took steps throughout the day to prevent mental fatigue and stress from disrupting their nightly rest. Just as we may use meditation apps or relaxation techniques today, the Egyptians engaged in mindful practices that kept them centered and calm. The importance of the mind-body connection was central to their approach to health. Whether through meditative prayer, reflection, or simply the practice of engaging in quiet activities, Egyptians set aside time throughout the day to clear their minds, ensuring they could enjoy peaceful rest at night. This understanding of mental hygiene and the importance of relaxing the mind before sleep resonates strongly with modern approaches to stress management. Historians still debate how widespread these sleep rituals were across Egyptian society. Was it primarily the royalty and priests who engaged in these spiritual and physical practices, or were these practices part of a more widespread cultural tradition? Some believe these rituals were reserved for the elite, those with access to private temples and personal attendants who could help facilitate these spiritual practices. Others suggest that the everyday Egyptian, particularly in the larger cities like Thebes or Cairo, adopted similar routines. Regardless of the level of access, it's clear that the Egyptians saw sleep as more than just physical rest, it was a moment for spiritual renewal and cosmic balance. As you imagine the life of an ancient Egyptian preparing for sleep, consider how these daily practices would shape the way you approach rest. The Egyptians didn't just fall into bed, they prepared for sleep, mindfully creating a space where they could align their bodies, spirits, and minds. This ritualistic approach was tied to the Egyptians' belief that life itself was a spiritual journey, one that required alignment with divine principles to maintain balance. Sleep, in this context, was not merely the end of the day, but the continuation of that spiritual journey, where the soul was given time to rest, renew, and reconnect. So, think of your own daily rituals. Are you preparing yourself for a restful night of sleep, both physically and spiritually? Whether it's through evening meditation, light stretching, or creating a peaceful, intentional space before bed, consider how you can create your own sleep ritual that not only promotes physical comfort but also supports mental and spiritual balance. The Egyptians didn't just sleep, they cultivated rest throughout the day, aligning their bodies and minds to ensure that they could experience deep, restorative sleep. As we move through our modern lives, we too can take a lesson from their holistic approach to sleep and well-being. Now, let's take a step back and consider the long-term impact of the ancient Egyptian sleep practices, particularly the use of incense and rituals on their overall well-being. As we've seen, sleep in ancient Egypt wasn't just an act of resting the body, it was a holistic process that involved the purification of the mind, body, and spirit. This approach had significant benefits, not just for individual health but for the health of society as a whole. The Egyptians understood that wellness didn't just happen by accident. It required ritual, intention, and balance. By consciously creating an environment of peace and harmony before sleep, they ensured that their bodies could recover, their minds could clear, and their souls could renew. In many ways, the ancient Egyptians were pioneers in understanding the importance of sleep hygiene long before we started talking about the physical and emotional benefits of good sleep in modern times. Interestingly, the Egyptians were among the first to recognize the link between sleep and the overall quality of life. By taking steps to improve sleep quality, they were able to improve both their physical and mental health. Incense was not only used for its calming effects but also for its ability to influence emotions, which is something we see in modern practices like aromatherapy. Studies have shown that certain scents, like frankincense, can lower anxiety and improve mood, helping to prepare the mind for rest and relaxation. The Egyptians intuitively understood this connection between scent and mood, using incense to create a space where both the body and spirit could enter a state of peace and relaxation. Historians still argue whether this deep connection to mental wellness and sleep was widely recognized by all Egyptians or primarily practiced by the elite. Some suggest that the use of incense and the emphasis on sleep rituals were mainly the privilege of the priestly class and royalty. The use of incense, particularly frankincense and myrrh, was expensive and likely limited to the wealthy. However, it's also possible that the spiritual importance of sleep was shared across different classes. In a society where religious and spiritual life permeated almost every aspect of daily activity, it seems likely that many Egyptians, not just the elite, adopted some form of these restful rituals in their daily lives. Regardless of social class, the rituals of sleep in ancient Egypt were a key part of maintaining balance and wellness. The act of burning incense, along with the spiritual practices that surrounded it, helped to create a protected space for rest. This peaceful environment allowed individuals to heal both physically and spiritually. This practice is mirrored today in the modern wellness movement, which emphasizes creating a restful, healing environment through aromatherapy, meditation, and other practices designed to balance the body and mind. The Egyptians' approach to wellness through sleep can also be seen in their belief that spiritual alignment was crucial to maintaining health. This is something that is often overlooked today when we talk about sleep. We focus so much on sleep duration and quality, but the Egyptians understood that spiritual peace was an integral part of rest. It wasn't just about how much sleep you got, it was about how that sleep was structured and how it connected you to something larger than yourself. The Egyptians understood that the quality of one's sleep could directly influence their overall vitality and spiritual health, leading to a life of balance, peace, and alignment with the divine. As we consider how sleep was treated in ancient Egypt, it's also worth reflecting on how these ideas can be applied to modern practices. Today, we often focus on science-based methods for improving sleep, such as understanding circadian rhythms or using modern sleep aids like melatonin. But the Egyptians remind us that sleep is also a time for spiritual connection and mental clarity. In a world where many people struggle with stress and anxiety before bedtime, the practice of creating a peaceful space, through aromatherapy, meditation, or mindful reflection, may be just as important as the physical comfort of our beds. We may not have the incense or rituals of the ancient Egyptians, but we can still incorporate their timeless wisdom into our own lives. Just as they prepared their minds and souls for sleep, we too can make our own rest a more intentional, restorative experience by integrating calming practices into our nightly routines. Whether it's taking a few minutes for quiet reflection, lighting a calming candle, or using soothing scents to create a peaceful atmosphere, we can adopt these ancient traditions to help promote a more balanced and peaceful sleep. So, as you settle into your bed tonight, think about the role spirituality and mental clarity can play in creating a restful night's sleep. Like the ancient Egyptians, take time to clear your mind, create a peaceful environment, and perhaps light a calming incense or diffuser. Sleep isn't just about resting, it's an opportunity to renew not just the body, but the soul as well. As we wrap up our exploration of the ancient Egyptian sleep rituals, it's important to reflect on how these practices transcend time and continue to influence our modern approach to rest and well-being. The Egyptians believed that sleep wasn't just about physical rest, it was a spiritual journey, a time to reconnect with the divine, restore balance, and cleanse both body and soul. This holistic view of sleep, where physical, mental, and spiritual renewal were all considered essential, is something we can still learn from today. In our modern world, we often overlook the spiritual aspect of sleep. We focus on the scientific benefits of sleep, such as the need for deep, restorative rest and the role of sleep cycles in maintaining health. While this is important, the Egyptians remind us that sleep can also be a time for spiritual alignment and renewal. In fact, by considering the mental and emotional state before sleep, through practices like meditation, reflection, or simply creating a peaceful environment, we may enhance not only the quality of our rest but also our overall well-being. The use of incense in ancient Egypt is a beautiful example of how the environment can directly influence our physical and spiritual health. The act of burning frankincense and myrrh before bed wasn't just a means to create a soothing atmosphere, it was a ritual that aligned the soul with the divine and protected it from negative influences. Modern practices like aromatherapy, which use scents to create relaxation and mental clarity, are direct descendants of these ancient practices. Today, we understand that certain scents can have profound effects on our mood, anxiety levels, and overall mental well-being. The Egyptians were, in essence, early pioneers of fragrance therapy, using incense to cultivate a peaceful environment conducive to restful sleep and spiritual growth. Another key lesson from the ancient Egyptians is the importance of ritual in preparing for sleep. Just as they took time to purify their bodies, clear their minds, and create a spiritual environment, we too can benefit from developing bedtime rituals that support restful sleep. Whether it's through relaxing activities like reading, journaling, or gentle stretching, these rituals signal to the body and mind that it's time to wind down and prepare for rest. The Egyptians saw sleep as a sacred practice that required intention and care, and we can incorporate this same level of mindfulness into our own sleep routines. The Egyptian focus on balance, not just in sleep but in life, reminds us that sleep is deeply connected to the overall rhythm of the day. In ancient Egypt, the entire daily routine was structured to ensure that individuals had the right balance of work, rest, and spiritual practice. This balance helped maintain their health and allowed them to live with purpose. We can adopt a similar approach by being more mindful of how we structure our days and nights, ensuring that we prioritize rest and spiritual reflection as part of our self-care routine. It's also worth considering how the Egyptians used sleep as a way to stay connected to the divine. The belief that sleep could be a time of divine connection and spiritual growth might seem foreign in today's world, where sleep is largely seen as a physical necessity. However, this perspective can be a reminder to honor sleep as something more than just a biological function. By creating intentional practices that promote both physical and mental well-being, we can make our sleep a more restorative and rejuvenating experience, just as the Egyptians did. As you settle in for your own night's rest tonight, think about how you can create a peaceful sleep environment, not just physically, but also emotionally and spiritually. Could you adopt some of the ancient Egyptian practices, like using relaxing scents, engaging in a ritual of gratitude, or clearing your mind before bed? In today's world, where sleep can often feel rushed or disrupted, the Egyptians offer us a timeless reminder that rest is not just for physical recovery, it's also an opportunity for spiritual renewal, balance, and peace. Sleep is a sacred practice, a time to reconnect, recharge, and align with both the inner self and the greater world around us. The Egyptians understood this deeply, and their use of incense, ritual, and spiritual practices created a restful sleep environment that went beyond the physical. As we integrate their wisdom into our modern lives, we too can create a space for peace, balance, and spiritual connection in our own sleep. May you find peace in the quiet of tonight, surrounded by a calm environment that invites restful sleep, just as the ancient Egyptians did. Allow your body, mind, and spirit to be restored, and may you wake up refreshed and ready to embrace the day ahead, with a sense of alignment and balance.